I don't love the lines this week, but between the COVID issues, which you have to monitor, my entire life, I made my bets earliest I could. Now I make my bets as late as I can because of all the COVID stuff. So I'll just throw out games that interested me.
All right.
Vikings beat the Packers the first time. Green Bay's at home -6.5. I think Green Bay realizes they're not necessarily buttoned up, haven't played well, struggled to bury the Bears, struggled to bury the Browns. So I think it's important to not only win here, but play well. Jair Alexander practiced. He could take their top receiver, Justin Jefferson, to some degree out of the game. I'd probably take Green Bay -6.5, sharp or square.
That's going to be square. That number is so big right now. You're probably getting 3 points of value on the Vikings. Most professionals would have this power rated closer to 3.5, maybe 4.5. But don't forget, the Vikings all season long, they A, end up playing in close games, B, end up playing to the level of their opponent. So when they're playing someone bad, they play pretty bad and it's a close game. When they're playing someone good, they play pretty well and it's a close game. Saw the same thing last week at the Rams. Obviously, they were 3-point underdogs. Game ended at 7, but the game was that was a close game. That's a 1-score game, right? So you're getting the 2 or 3 points of value. It's interesting to me. The line had been holding at 6.5 for most of the week, largely because the professional bettors continued to bet on the Vikings at 6.5. The Alexander news came out. A little bit more public money came in on the Packers. Come Sunday, a lot of professional money is going to come in on the Vikings, especially if this game stays at 7.
All right, Browns-Steelers, interesting. Big Ben's last game. So I expect an elevated emotional performance. Steelers were embarrassed. Elevated emotional performance. Steelers are home dogs. Mike Tomlin's history as dogs. So Pittsburgh +3 feels like the side. I do wonder, Chad, if I should wait and it goes up, but sharp or square first. Let's start with that.
Definitely sharp betting the Steelers. You can get the Steelers right now at 3.5. And this is a massive, massive pros Joes game. And what I mean when I say that every single week is you've got the professional bettors on one side. So the majority of the money, about 69% of the money, is coming in on the Steelers. And you've got majority of the bets coming in on the Browns. So that's the discrepancy. When you have bets, that's what the public is doing. When you have money, that's what the pros are doing. This has been a pros game all week. It did get bet down to 3 for about 24 hours. It's come back up to 3.5 because of the public money coming in on the Browns. But you're right. I mean, people are betting on the emotion of Ben Roethlisberger's last game at home, of Mike Tomlin being a coach who can rally his troops and put them in the rah-rah Mike Tomlin spot. The fact that these games in the division tend to end up being around a field goal. A lot of sort of signals playing in your favor here.
I would take Washington +3.5 hosting the Eagles. I have a rule. If you are publicly humiliated, especially by a division rival, you'll bounce back and play very, very well. I think Washington can cover or win straight out. I'll take the hook. I'll take 3.5. It's been one of my rules for years. Sharp or square?
Totally sharp. In fact, on the favorites, on the podcast I do with professional bettor Simon Hunter, we have this segment called Sharp Calls. It's where professional bettors, we do the podcast on Tuesday afternoon. We go over every game. And then we go over the lines on Thursday to see where things are landing, how news is moving, how that information is impacting our decision-making. One of the segments we do is called Sharp Calls. It's where a lot of other professional bettors who listen to the podcast, they call Simon and they sort of critique what he likes and what he doesn't like, or what we talked about. He got literally 8 calls from other professional betting groups that are sort of peers of his, with how much they love the Washington football team here. It was at +4 when it opened. If you could get that, great. Get it down to +3.5. That's fine too. A couple weeks ago, the Eagles at home were -2.5. And so then all of a sudden, like, there's a huge, huge swing. This is a couple points of value here that you're really getting. It's a total overreaction to what happened in prime time for the Washington football team against the Cowboys. And your instincts about getting blown out. You were specific about the division, but it's really specific to anyone that's blown out. Teams that didn't cover by more than 28 points. So like the Washington football team last week, when they are blown out, since 2003, 78, 46, and 5 against the spread the next week. That's 63%. So bookmakers are banking on the public overreacting to the Eagles. Everyone in Vegas loves this game.
So the Cowboys are swallowing 4.5 against Arizona. Arizona's problems, according to Greg Cosell, are that they're not handling pressure and man-to-man coverage particularly well. The Cowboys create pressure and play the most man-to-man coverage in the NFL. So I think Dallas at home wins. I do worry about teams that win easily. Games over by half can lack the intensity and urgency the following week. So my guess is the sharp play is Arizona. My play is Dallas minus 4.5 sharper square.
You're playing both sides of it, and the wise guys are kind of playing both sides of it too. I can't give you a definitive sharper square on this. The game was at 6, and it got bet down to 4.5. And then when it got to 4.5, with the Cowboys favored by 4.5 points, it got bet bad up to 6. And I think a lot of people, a lot of wise guys, as they've done the research this week, similar to what Greg talked to you about, and Greg's amazing, and I always love when he's on your show, is Kyler Murray on third down is just struggling without DeAndre Hopkins. And I think Cliff Kingsbury, professional bettors have always thought Cliff Kingsbury, once it gets to the second half of the season, is a terrible coach. And you can go back to his record at Texas Tech.
Yeah, you can.
Playing with Patrick Mahomes. Awful once you get out of September, October. And it's proven to be true again. What he did in that game last weekend, the decision-making he had on that Saturday night was just dreadful. Not even against like the new sort of looks at analytics and how people are thinking about going forward in various spots, just terrible. So you've got Cliff making bad decisions. You've got Kyler Murray struggling on third downs without Hopkins. It's kind of a game like, if you can get the Cowboys at 6, I think it's still the right side. If it gets to 6.5 or 7, you probably want to skip it.
I've had a lot of success this year betting the Chargers. So I'm going to take Denver plus 5.5 Bridgewater practice this week. I bet against them in one. I bet for them, and here's why. I'll go back to this. Why does Kyler Murray struggle so much without DeAndre Hopkins, yet Tom Brady doesn't, missing Chris Godwin or a Mike Evans? Why? Aaron Rodgers, by the way, has never lost a game missing Devontae Adams. Why? Because when you get to a certain number of years in this league, 5 or 6 or 7 years starting, you're much more capable of working without your best targets. But a Kyler Murray or a Justin Herbert last week, missing Mike Williams and his starting Pro Bowl center, young quarterbacks struggle, even if they're talented, much more than veteran quarterbacks missing key pieces, because this is a hard position to play. So Vic Fangio has given Justin Herbert troubles. Bill Belichick given Justin Herbert troubles. He's still a kid. And in this instance, I think the game is close. It's divisional. I'll take the error-free Teddy Bridgewater plus 5.5 sharper square.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sharp side. You're kind of guessing right now that Teddy Bridgewater is going to play. In the last 24 hours, he has practiced, but his status is still a little bit uncertain. But the Broncos right now, for an example, 98% of the money coming in on the Broncos, majority of bets, a little more than 50%, coming in on the Chargers. So you do have a pro Joe discrepancy here. The Broncos with Teddy Bridgewater on the road as a sort of close to touchdown underdog are going to be the side that the wise guys consistently play, especially against Justin Herbert. Forget it, even no matter who the Broncos are playing, that's the side they're going to like, because they like Teddy and they like the way this defense plays and they like them on the road. They're always a little bit undervalued on the road, this team. Justin Herbert has just been too inconsistent, right? And I don't think he has the advantage, again, of a coach in Brandon Staley. He's not Cliff Kingsbury. He's much more consistent in his decision-making. But with that consistency, you know that there's going to be opportunities for them to not score points inside the red zone because of his tendencies to go for it on fourth down. So that has the opportunity to keep the game a little bit closer. However, I will say, I wouldn't bet this one yet. Like, wait and make sure Teddy Bridgewater is playing, because Drew Lock is not an NFL quarterback. And if he is, then you skip it.
Rams at the Ravens. FanDuel now has the line at Ravens plus 4.5. I saw video of Lamar Jackson, and the limp was significant. If he doesn't play, I would take the Rams minus 4.5. That's what it feels like to me. I feel like the Ravens have done as good a job as possible to put Band-Aids on their problems, but they've been in so many emotional games recently. I kind of feel like even though the Rams were just on the road, went home, go back on the road, I'd probably take the Rams minus the point, sharp or square.
Yeah, this is a really, really tricky one. Early in the week, when the Ravens were 3.5, and the speculation was not knowing about Lamar Jackson, but expecting him to play, the wise guys were all over the Ravens. And then that video came out. And since that video came out, the line has been shooting up. So now you mentioned it's at 4.5. I know a lot of professional bettors are trying to sort of buy back on the Rams because they saw that video. My take on this is, personally, if I can make an executive decision here, I'm sticking with the Ravens. And if you keep getting the value, great. But Lamar Jackson is probably going to get a pretty significant shot to play on Sunday, which he might not have gotten on Wednesday at practice. They're getting much healthier in their defensive secondary, which is important, where they've been missing so many players. I think you've got a huge coaching advantage in John Harbaugh. And the one thing the Ravens haven't suffered on when it's come to injuries and COVID is the running game on their defense. And that's what the Rams need to set up the entirety of their offense. So give me a team that has a better coach at home with a quarterback who may be, not feeling any pain on Sunday, and the opportunity to stop what the other team can do offensively that sets up their system. I'd stick with the Ravens.
So you don't like Sean McVay as a coach?
I think he's great as a coach. I think John Harbaugh is just better.
No.
I will say, it's funny. Earlier in the year, there were conversations. Do people like the Rams to win the NFC West? Do people like the Niners to win the NFC West? My feeling on this is, who do you like better, Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay? I'm a huge Kyle Shanahan fan. I think that what he did last year, when he was basically playing with a different lineup every week that was almost always second and third stringers, he almost relished the opportunity. He looked at it and said, I can do so many interesting things. And he kept his team in so many games. That, to me, is the mark of a great coach. You're seeing with Belichick too, and sort of the way he was able to recast his entire team in 24 months. I think Shanahan's the best coach in the NFC West. And it's not to say I don't like Sean McVay. I think he's obviously incredibly talented, but I think Harbaugh's better.
By the way, now I give you the line I missed. I'm guessing it's Dolphins plus 3.5 at the Titans, because I think the Dolphins defense is great, and I don't trust Tannehill without a power running back, although A.J. Brown has emerged as a spectacular player. So I would take the Dolphins plus the points. But is there a bet I missed you love?
Well, I'll counter you and say that actually the Titans are the game, other than the Washington football team, that the wise guys have loved the most this week. They've been riding this Dolphins team and playing him in the right spots, but look at who the Dolphins have beaten in their winning streak. Lamar Jackson in a short week, Zach Wilson, Mike Glennon, Joe Flacco, Ian Book, Cam Newton, Tyrod Taylor. Their O-line is terrible. Tennessee is now healthier.
And got extra prep.
And they've had more time to prep. So that, because they beat the Niners on a Thursday night. This line moved for literally a minute on Tuesday to -3. I bet it at Titans -3. A ton of money came in on the Titans at 3.5. And this is really interesting, because this is one of those games that is a pros Joe's game in favor of the Dolphins getting the bets, the Titans getting the money, the Dolphins getting the bets and the Titans getting the money. So the underdog here is a little bit of a public underdog.
Finally, got anything else?
So I just mentioned Kyle Shanahan, and it's just an interesting trend to pay attention to. Another very public dog right now, the Houston Texans, right? This line should be between the Texans and the Niners. is 12.5. Most wise guys have it power rated at 14. So there's a little bit of value in a very, very big dog on the Niners. Obviously, Trey Lance is playing, but I think that a lot of professional bettors are looking at this and thinking this is a much better team that has more value from a point spread point of view, and you're going to get away from backing a public dog. And you get a lot of public dogs these days. And we've talked a lot about this. The more betting becomes part of the public consciousness, and the more people are aware of it, and the more legal it becomes in more states, there's some people that are getting smarter. And the Texans are one of those teams where people like the way they play. They feel like getting a lot of points is an opportunity to bet them. The wise guys are fading that trend this week.
So the wise guys like San Francisco
right now.
All right.